My pranams to everybody. I'm sorry for being so late. My Zoom thing decided it had to reinstall and update and everything before we started. So we can go ahead and begin. Gauraganyadana gocha golodaharam Gauranga kudatama gopyada kopa vriksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachiya Dileka Kola Kahe Premananda Hemana Gauranga Hridaya Dadiya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hayamara Pranare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya, Prema-bhakti-candrika Parama Pumata, Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Vishayita Kriya Yanaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Bapahimam Panchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So nice to see everybody. I'm sorry, several devotees have written me, including Jai Gaur and also Radhajeev and Gopal Prabhu and a few others, and nice letters, and I want to get back to you guys. It's just been a little intense for me right now because of Bhishma Panchika. So let's go ahead, and we're continuing with our discussion about Chakudan Dilo Jai Janmi Prabhu say. And let me put this on the screen. I've been reading from Sri Guru Vandana Guru Maharaj, and we've been going a little slow. I hope that's okay with everybody. Here we go. I'll go ahead and read a little bit to begin. So Guru Maharaj is speaking about what's a true disciple, and he's saying that when we speak about Sadguru, there's also Sat Sishya. And just as very difficult to find a Sadguru, it's also very difficult to find a Sat Sishya. Actually, it's said that Guru Mili Laki Sishya Miliyak, that there's hundreds and millions of bona fide gurus, but it's very hard to find even one bona fide disciple. That's why I'm not very inspired when I hear devotees just complain about the gurus, because if we're bona fide ourselves, then Krishna will send us the right person. So Guru Maharaj says something a little intense. He says that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, just prior to his departure, he called for all of his disciples and he told them, no one is my disciple because no one's accepted my direction and followed as it is. Now, I've inserted a little note here that Guru Maharaj told the same story in several different occasions. And once we asked him that he had Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had several different exalted disciples like Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj and Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj and others. So how do we understand this statement? And Guru Maharaj said that we should understand it in a figurative way, not in a literal historical sense. It doesn't mean that there's no bona fide disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, only Srila Prabhupada's bona fide or something. But Guru Maharaj is speaking in a figurative way, and he goes on, they all twisted his instructions and acted in their own whimsical way. If such a powerful Vaishnava, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, commented that he found it so difficult to find a such Sishya, then what to speak of us? As it is very difficult to find a Sadguru, similarly it is very difficult to find a such Sishya. For the Sat Sishya, if his Guru has disappeared from this planet and gone to the Nityadham, the eternal abode of Krishna, still the Guru keeps an eye on his Sat Sishya from that abode. Sadguru is very powerful. He's a manifestation of the Chaitya Guru, the Paramatma in the heart. From the abode of Krishna, that Sadguru inculcates potency into the heart of the Sat Sishya and thereby attracts him. The Sishya may be in the same body, or he may have left his body and taken birth in some other place. Still, wherever he may be, the Sadguru who's there in the Nityadham keeps an eye on him. And just to remind everybody, we spoke about this in some of our previous sessions, and how Guru will empower a Vaishnava near to that disciple. And that's the same as Gurudev coming, that Vaishnava is being empowered with the particular Shakti of Guru. And that's Gurudev's care upon that disciple. Guru Maharaj goes on, it's not impossible on the part of the Sadguru to attract his Sat Sishya and take him to the abode of Krishna. The Sishya may have accepted another body, taken birth in some other land, still the Guru knows it and sees him. He'll empower a nearby sadhu to teach the disciple. And that way he takes care. And if it's required, the Guru himself comes to impart tattva gyan, transcendental knowledge, to give him siksha and diksha. In this way, the relationship is kept up. In conclusion, it may be said that all this is done by the Yogamaya Shakti of the Lord. In this way, she maintains the eternal relationship between the Sadguru and the Sat Sishya. Therefore, we say, Chakudan Diloje, Jami Jami Prabhu say. This is the tattva. So in our last session, we spoke something about this disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who had strayed away from following the principles, and even he started eating meat. And later in his life, after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had left, he did these things, and then he became very sick and he died. And his family were lamenting, and they took his body to the smasana, the crematorium ground, to burn it. And suddenly he came back to life, to the shock, and jumped up and started shouting, Prabhupada, 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 meaning Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And the story, which is told by some of our friends in Gaudiya Math, that this devotee had been taken by the Yamadutas before Yamaraj, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came there and saved him, and then told him that he has to take initiation again. He only had Harinam initiation, and he should take initiation again from Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Maharaj, as I recall, which he did. And after that, he became very strict about chanting. So it's a nice example of how Guru takes care of the disciple. So I want to go on with our next section here. And maybe Jai Gaur, would you like to read something from Ignorance Destroyed?
Yes, Rup.
Go ahead.
Okay. I see. The Ignorance Destroyed is the heading. Okay. Prema-bhakti-candrika hoite, avidyā, vināśa jāte, vedigai jāhara charito. Shri Guru is the bestower of Prema Bhakti and the destroyer of ignorance. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Avidyā, ignorance, is a great hindrance. Unless one develops Prema Bhakti, this avidya cannot be destroyed. Therefore, Shri Guru means that Guru who is endowed with Prema. Prema Bhakti jāṅhā hoite, avidyā vināśa jāte. That is Shri Guru. From him you have gotten the prema bhakti by which your ignorance is dispelled. By the mercy of Guru, one gets prema bhakti, avidyā is dispelled, and one's sambandha relationship is revealed. Krishna is the only object of love, priti vishaya. The prema bhakta, the devotee that has developed prema, is priti ashraya, the abode of love. So there is an eternal relationship between the vishaya and the ashraya. And by the mercy of Sadguru, one develops this Bhagavat Priti, love of Godhead. Depending on the potency of the Guru, love of Godhead enters into the heart of the sadhaka in this material world, attracting the sadhaka towards the all-beautiful Shyamsundar Krishna. Therefore it is said, Prema-bhakti, jāṅhā, hoite.
So, just a couple of days ago, maybe it was yesterday, I posted something on Facebook from Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj from his book about Guru and Disciple. And it's quite a heavy statement from him. And some devotees were a little taken aback by it. I'd like to just go over that statement real quick. And because the comments that Guru Maharaj is making here and what Narottam Das Thakur is saying here is very applicable for it. So Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj in his book, The Art of Sadhana, he's saying that the disciple should think as follows, that I've taken shelter of my Guru, I've been initiated, now I'm on the road to pure devotion, and if my behavior is bad, then people will not stop at criticizing only me, but they'll also criticize my Guru, they'll criticize my worship of deity, the path of devotion, the entire Vaishnava Sampradaya, the previous acharyas, and even religion itself. So if I fall from the standards of behavior expected of a saintly person, and the Vaishnavas, then immediately all generations of my family will fall down to hell. And it's a very, very heavy statement. So some people were saying, my gosh, then should we take initiation? How do we understand this? So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described that at the time of initiation, Krishna says that that devotee, Diksha Kali Bhakta Kori Atma Samarpana, say Kali Krishna Tari Kori Atma Sam. At the time of initiation, Diksha Kali Bhakta Kori Atma Samarpana, Krishna says that that devotee becomes just as good as myself. So he says that Atma Samarpana, when that devotee surrenders at the time of initiation, he's as good as Krishna himself. Now we've seen, unfortunately, there's been many different scandals in our Vaishnava Sangha of different personalities who had the position of guru or sannyasi. And then some unfortunate things came out about them. And because of that, so many devotees criticize ISKCON, sometimes they even criticize Prabhupada, or sometimes, as Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj is saying, even they just criticize religion in general, or even Krishna. And this is similar to what we were mentioning a few sessions ago from the Padma Purana, where Krishna called for Lord Shiva, and he said, there's a problem, I want your help. And Lord Shiva said, well, what is it? And he said, the problem is the demons are practicing bhakti. And Lord Shiva said, well, that's a problem. Yes, it's a problem. Because it's a problem because if someone has a demoniac nature and they're not following principles properly, and they practice bhakti, then bhakti will be criticized. Krishna will be criticized, and the devotees will be criticized. So when we begin the process of bhakti, when we at the time of initiation, if we're surrendered, then Krishna accepts that devotee as good as himself. And it is described, as we're just reading, that Prema-bhakti-candrika hoite avidyā vināśa jāte. That Sri Gurudev, then he will destroy that ignorance in the heart of the disciple. And that's a person who's really a disciple. So that's a little discouraging for most of us, probably, who still have anarthas in our heart, anartha yukta vasta. And we may think that, well, maybe I shouldn't get initiated at all. But if we consider the matter, Srila Prabhupada gave initiation to many different persons who did have problems and even encouraged them, because they're also a work in progress and there's some gradual benefit. But we should be very, very careful because, as Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj is describing, that if we fall down, if we have some problems, then everyone criticizes ISKCON, everyone criticizes the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, or even they'll criticize Krishna, or even they'll criticize religion in general and lose faith in it. So this statement of Narottam Das Thakur is there, Prema-bhakti jāṅhā hoite avidyā vināśa, that is Prema Bhakti, which will destroy this ignorance. And it's Gurudev who bestows that upon the disciple. But it's not just that at the time of initiation that happens, although Krishna is saying Diksha Kali at the time of initiation, but he adds the point Atma Samarpana, that when we fully surrender, and therefore Bhaktivinoda Thakur and other acharyas have stressed so much the importance of Saranagati, that it's not enough just to get initiated by Guru, but we actually have to surrender. And for many of us, that may take some time. It might even take several lifetimes, as we were telling the story in our last session of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and that disciple who went to hell. It may take some time. I remember in one class Guru Maharaj gave in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, he was speaking something. It was from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Harinam Chintamani, where he said that after initiation, if someone even thinks about sinful activities, they'll go to hell for that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that. He says because although it's stated that in Kali Yuga one doesn't get a reaction for thinking of sinful things, if someone's initiated, Bhaktivinoda says, they're no longer considered to be in Kali Yuga, rather they're considered to be in Satya Yuga. So Guru Maharaj said that. I didn't say anything at the time. I didn't want to publicly disagree with him or question what he was saying. I was his personal driver at that time. And after the class, I was sitting and waiting in the car, and Guru Maharaj came in, and just the two of us, and I asked him this question. I said, Guru Maharaj, I have this problem I don't understand. You made this point, and Bhaktivinoda is saying this, that a disciple after initiation, if he even thinks of something sinful, what to speak of acting on it, then that disciple will go to hell. Okay, that's a bitter pill to swallow, but Bhaktivinoda says that. But what seems incongruous to me is the fact that we say that Gurudev is Petit Pavan, that he's very merciful, and we also say that he's Trikalagya, such a person knows past, present, and future. So those two qualities then, in light of the fact that the disciple who's not qualified will go to hell, those two qualities don't seem to be compatible. Why in the world would Guru initiate someone seeing that they're not qualified, that they're not going to follow practice properly, and they're going to go to hell? How do we understand that? That was my question. And Guru Maharaj looked at me and he laughed. And he said, yes, you will go to hell. And then he said, but after going to hell, then again you will take up the process of bhakti. So I'm not suggesting that even he was meaning that every single disciple who just thinks of something evil or something sinful is going to go to hell, but that we should think that. And we should be very, very careful. And we need to be careful to surrender. And surrender means to surrender to the instructions of Gurudev. It's not just that Guru is Konafanka Guru, as they say in Orissa, that someone who spits in your ear, meaning gives you mantra. But Guru is Ashraya Datta. He's someone that we take shelter of. And we take shelter of Gurudev, as Narottam Das Thakur was explaining in the song, through the instructions of Gurudev. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chiteti Koriya Aikya, that I want to make my heart one with those instructions of Gurudev. I want to take shelter of those instructions of Gurudev. If someone's just taking initiation and thinking that's sufficient, and now Gurudev, what's happened? I took initiation, but I still have anartas in my heart. There must be something wrong with Guru. There's nothing wrong with Guru. Maybe necessarily there's not anything wrong, but maybe we're not properly surrendered, and we should understand that. So let me stop there for a minute and see if anybody has any reflections or questions, comments at this point. These very cheerful topics. Lila Purushottam Prabhu, you want to offer something?
At that point, this because it sounds quite radical on one hand, that only one who has prema, his avidyā is destroyed. But what I like on it is that it shows the positive approach to the Krishna consciousness, that it's not that you can do bhakti only when you got rid of avidyā, but that by prema, the avidyā is destroyed.
Yeah, and as you know, in Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath explains that all the way up to prema, there's still some subtle anartas left. And even at the time of prema, there may be, as long as we have a material body, those anartas, just like he gives the example of a log of wood that's been burned completely, but it still has the form. And so it's still, by appearance sake, it looks like we still have some material body, we still have some karma, whatever. But if you touch that log of wood that's been burned, it just turns into ashes, into nothing. So another point inherent in this instructions of Narottam Das Thakur is that we want to get Krishna Prema. And until we get Krishna Prema, we're still going to have problems. Because so many devotees, I find, they consider that we're the International Society for Anartha Nibritti, that we want to become free from anartas. Maybe that's an easier thing to think about to try to go for Krishna Prema. But we're not interested in anartha nibritti. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, that if we just strive for anartha nibritti, then we may just end up with impersonal liberation. Okay. Thank you, Lila. Anybody else with any reflections on this now? We'll go on. Jaguar, are you raising your hand?
Yes, bro. I was thinking about that statement you're making, the Guru Mili Laki Shishya Miliak, that there's, it's hard to find one Satsishya. And I was thinking, does that mean that, like in order, it seems like a Satguru would have to be Satsishya also. So,
yes.
So it in one sense it doesn't add up, because it's saying, it's Satguru is easy to find compared to Satsishya, but Satguru must be Satsishya. So it's the same in a sense. And I was kind of thinking, is it possible for there to be such, like, you could have an experience of Satguru even if they aren't a Satsishya, because Krishna has empowered them to speak. Krishna is speaking through them.
Satguru means Satsishya. And Guru Maharaj explains that elsewhere too. And even if theoretically someone just descends from the spiritual world and they don't externally have a guru in this lifetime, they're an eternal associate of Krishna and they've come to preach their guru in that sense, even that person also has guru. And even Krishna himself has guru. Radharani is his guru. So, and that personality is coming from the spiritual world. Krishna is his guru. Does that make sense?
It's true.
Just, yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was just thinking, if if Satguru is Satsishya, then how is it harder to find Satsishya than Satguru if they're the same? Just kind of like a numbers game.
Yeah, it's a little paradoxical. The point being that we should be a bona fide disciple, and until we actually decide to do that and really follow the instructions of Guru, we're going to have troubles. And we have so many external things that we go through, and we have initiation ceremonies and sannyas ceremonies and temples and so many things. But those things are just there to help us to realize that I have to be serious with it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Harinam Chintamani, he says that even if someone's chanting 64 rounds a day, there's not much benefit. As I recall, he says, not much benefit if we're not paying attention to what we're chanting. And he says in different places that we shouldn't be paying so much attention to the numbers. So then someone may question, why do we stress 64 rounds? Well, that's an external thing. And if we're doing that, then we think, oh yeah, I'm reminding ourselves that I'm on this path and I have to work hard, I have to do this thing. And so these external things are there to help us because we're very external. Otherwise, Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't really care about saffron cloth or sannyas, or there's so many things we can point out, institutions and things. But to help us to focus, we have those external things like that. Is that okay, Jaguar?
Yeah, Prabhu, thank you.
Brenda Sundari's offers some comment here. Let me read this too. It's a nice comment. So much healthy pressure to be on our best behavior. The pressure feels burdensome if we're not diligent in our sadhana and self-introspection. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this comment from Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj and kind of introducing it into our discussion today, because I think it's appropriate by just understanding that Prema-bhakti, Prema-bhakti-candrika, hoite, avidyā, vināśa, jāte, the meaning of it. And I was reading something recently. Linda Sundari might find this interesting, I think, because you're a mother with children. And there's one senior Vaishnava who's outside of ISKCON, but was in ISKCON for some time. And he was saying some rather disparaging things about children chanting japa. And I found it really interesting, and I was kind of contemplating it, and I wanted to share with you as a discussion, not a rule or something. But his point was that, he said, I've seen so many children chanting japa and being pushed into chanting japa, and it's hard for them. It's hard for kids to do that. And so many of them, he said, basically every one of them, even he said he knew about some young girl who was chanting 1 lakh a day for some time, but after some time they all gave it up when they got a little older. And he said, in his opinion, far better to encourage them to make garlands or take part in kirtan or get a taste from other different Krishna conscious activities. And I thought that was an interesting point. And I began to extrapolate on that also. And Srila Prabhupada, and many times he said that we should not encourage everyone to take initiation. See, I was contemplating, why is it that we push chanting japa so much, chanting 16 rounds? We push that practically with brand new people. I've seen devotees, when people first come to the temple, we give them some japa mala and we start encouraging them to chant 16 rounds. And I think probably a lot of that is because we want to increase the numbers in our group. And it's a kind of cheap way to get someone initiated. We're just thinking of the externals. How many rounds are they chanting? How many numbers are they doing? Rather than encouraging them to have some taste in bhakti. And that japa really, it should not be an institutional thing. It should not just be something that you just do to get initiated. But that japa really is something very personal and private. And someone who's chanting japa, it should be somebody who's very serious about that. So that was my little contemplation with that. And I don't know if that's relevant for your comment there or not, Bimba Sundari. Do you have anything you want to add to that? You probably wish you knew deity right now. Okay, otherwise we'll go on. Anybody else with any other reflections or anything? No addition from Bindu Sundari. Thank you. I'd be really curious, so if devotees have any comments, you can digest this and think about it later, about what you think about getting children to chant japa. Because in one sense, it's a really nice thing, right? We want to encourage them like that, and they take some they take it seriously. It gives them some obligation, something. But on the other hand, maybe it's a little too early. I think we do that with a lot of the kids. You're thinking something about Leela?
Yes, I have through quite some observation, although I'm not so old, but throughout the generations actually now, I could see a huge difference between forced japa and then the contrast to it when the man who grew up in Krishna consciousness takes the beats on himself with the decision that this might nourish my relationship with Krishna, with God. And he takes the beats with this motivation, with this conviction, and then it really makes a huge difference. And usually it happens. Like I can see it because it's quite funny. When I joined, then Jagan Mohini, my wife's daughter, she was of the age 11, 12, something like that. And she just started to accepting Krishna consciousness on her own, meaning like not just imitating parents, but I want to do it for myself because it makes sense to me to do it. And the result now is that she's second initiated, practicing devotee, living nice Krishna conscious family life, having 3 children, trying to raise them nicely with Krishna consciousness. And now actually her daughter now is exactly that same age. It's like 10, 11, it's 11, Janaki, your true disciple. and for her, she didn't come yet to that feeling, like inner feeling that this is something that will nourish myself in whatever way. It just passes by. And even if you and the luck is that the whole setup of the family, like my wife and Jagan Mohini having these experiences, we are not like pushy, like you have to chant and you will go to hell if you don't chant. She doesn't hear these things, but yeah, it's in this comparison I see how individual it is. That it doesn't depend necessarily only that we could give the exact age. From this age they should chant, and like it just has to, they have to come to the point where it makes sense to them from the inside.
Yeah, japa is a very, very personal, private thing. That's my personal connection with Krishna. We can encourage people to chant japa, to chant kirtan as friends, come and sit and sing with us. That's a pretty easy thing to preach to them about. But to do japa, even my mother, when she came to India, she was a vegetarian the whole time she was here. She was in India. I'm not in India now, but the whole time she was in India, she was a vegetarian, just taking prasadam by my tricks. But at one point she asked me, she said, I'd like to chant japa. And I was very reluctant. I went out and finally she kept asking me, so I went and got her some japa beads. And when Mayapur, we took I took her with me and we took the beads to the Ganga and put them in the Ganga. And then we took and offered them to the Pujari for Radha Madhav, and then Sringadev, and then Panchatattva, and then to Prabhupada. And then I really wanted to make a samskar with her, but I really wasn't encouraging her about it because it didn't feel like she really wanted to do it on her own. It was just something which was kind of a novelty. This looks kind of cool. I'll try this kind of thing. And I wasn't inspired by that. And we're bringing this point up to in regards to this Prema-bhakti-candrika hoite avidyā vināśa jāte, because how is it that we're chanting japa, we're initiating things, but still that ignorance is not going away because we're not surrendering? And maybe we're chanting so many rounds, maybe the children are chanting so many rounds and things, but they're just doing it because we're pushing them. We're pushing because we want everybody to get initiated in just an external way, but we're not encouraging surrender, and that surrender will come in a natural way if people just get a taste. Thank you for saying something, Little Purushottam. I was curious what we think about it. I saw Janaki when we were. You tell her I said Hare Krishna. We were thinking about her.
Okay, I will. She'll be really happy.
Okay, we still have her picture also. We put up on the wall.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, my pranams to you all. Is it okay? Can I comment on that too?
Yeah, I would like to hear something from you. You're another mother out there.
I'm driving. So yeah, regarding the japa, Prabhu, from what I have noticed from in the congregation and with the children too, just chanting japa. So sorry if I'm not making the eye contact. I am driving, Prabhu.
No, that's okay.
So with the congregation, newcomers, I have noticed that just the japa cannot go on for a long time, not even for a few days. Without devotee association and without Krishna Katha, they will not be able to chant. And so there is no point in really pushing them because it will not go on. And we don't want to create that kind of distaste associated with japa when there is no, when they don't feel the attachment. So I personally would not push only for the japa. I would ask them to come over for devotee association just to hear whatever they can. And only then chant the japa rounds, whatever they are comfortable, even with one or two. But my focus would be more on to come and be with the devotees and then just do whatever rounds they feel comfortable. I have seen that people, because they're coming and staying with the devotees and hearing about the glories of Krishna, the glories of the Harinam, they actually go up on their rounds on their own, incrementally, Ekadasi. I tell them, even if they like to go up on the rounds, they have to feel from within.
We just lost you.
Sorry, Prabhu, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you again.
Yeah. So that way, Prabhu, only with the devotee Sangha, as they hear the glories of the Harinam, then they will be enthused on their own to do more japa. And we have seen devotees really developing that natural taste and want to get initiated on their own because hearing the Shastra and glories of the Harinam and themselves seeing the change within them, they are convinced by this time and they want to get initiated so they can start the process of Sharanagati like that. So unless it is naturally comes from within, japa cannot last longer on its own for somebody who is not having a devotee sangha. That's one thing, Prabhu, in the congregation. With the children, this is surprising. What they pick up, we can't really comprehend. They don't necessarily hear what we say. They actually see what we do. So if they are with the devotee parents, these children, they are pretty deep in their thinking. Though they look like, say, 8 or 10, their thinking, their comprehension and understanding of bhakti depends upon the people that they are associating with. So they may be wanting to japa even when they are 10 years or 12 years old because they have their own reason. And we ask them, it is surprising. They say, I want to go back home, back to Godhead. And I can do that only with 16 rounds. So that is as simple as that for us. But for them, they have their own processing. But somehow or other, they will develop their own personal connection with japa. And even though the youth and children are encouraged to be in the kirtan, I hear from my daughters how their personal connection is with the japa. They are teenage daughters. They say, Ma, we go for kirtan here and there. Sometimes it just gets so external and social. I want to take my japa weights. And I want to be with Krishna. I want to talk to Krishna. That is the time I'm with Krishna. And these are the words coming from the teenage girls. Then that's one thing. So for them, even for them, their personal connection is with japa more than kirtan, especially when they're looking for connection and not really caring much about the social devotee relationships. That's one thing, personal connection with japa. Second thing is they realize that their connection has to get even more personal and deeper with the japa. So when they realize it, they're looking for the sources of how they can get their relationship with japa better. And now by this time, their anchoring is more of internal than external practices of bhakti and whatever they see bhakti as outside. So their time, focus and energy is now going for the resources to develop their strong relationship with Harinam. And I have heard how much that has been their shelter during the troubling times, because even though they have wonderful devotee relationships outside, still they are prone to change over a period of time. And they have told me how it was so sheltering and having how they get the solace just with the japa. Clear about it, not just with the Krishna Katha, not just with the Kirtan, not just with the devotee association, but in particularly with the japa and journaling to Krishna. So just wanted to mention.
Wow, that was a great, thank you so much. That was really nice to hear all. You know, a funny thing that I find myself doing a lot of times just intuitively when I'm speaking with teens, especially like young girls who are like 14 or 16 or something like that, who are coming to class or chanting japa or something. Sometimes everybody else is encouraging them, but many times I discourage them. And I say, what are you doing? You're here, you listen to Krishna Katha, you shouldn't be out trying to find a boyfriend, going to the movies, doing this and that. And what are you doing? All your friends must think you're crazy. And I speak like that to them. And and it has kind of an opposite effect than a lot of times. No, I want to do this. I like doing this. But I'm very, very shy about pushing people, especially for japa. I think that japa should be something that they want to take up. Our friends in the Gaudiya Mutt, most Gaudiya Mutts, they don't give japa mala until someone gets initiated. And someone giving japa mala to someone, that's the activity of the guru. And they do that. But I've seen, we have a family, devotee family in Jagannath Puri, who they're very strict devotees, very nice, actually disciples of Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, whose thing we're just reading. And they would do kirtan every day and read and have japa and things, but they never invited their children. And they pointedly never encouraged their children, never asked them, never invited them. And what happened was that the children saw that the parents liked doing it. And they saw this is what the adults are doing. And then the kids, they used to beg them, I want to come to kirtan, please, please, please. Can I put on tilak? Please, please, please. I want to do that. I want to chant japa. It became something they wanted to do. So I'm mentioning all this because sometimes we may become discouraged and we may think, well, Narottam Das Thakur is singing Prema-bhakti-candrika, hoite, vināśa, jāte, and maybe there's something wrong with my guru because I got initiated and I still have anarthas, I still have ignorance in my heart. But the problem is not with guru, the problem is with us, and the problem is how we're approaching things. We're not approaching initiation in a proper way. Initiation means that we should be atma samarpana, that we should be completely surrendered. And if we're not completely surrendered, then we can't expect these kind of results. And therefore, many times devotees, they're doing things just in an external kind of way, encouraging people. I've seen devotees, like there's one preacher I know, when he gives classes to brand new people, it's in India, where they're like the Hindus, but in the very first classes, he's trying to get people to take beads, and how many rounds are you going to chant, and you should offer your food, and pushing all these kind of things because they're pushing people to get initiated ultimately. And then it becomes a cheap kind of thing. It's not a deep personal thing. Okay, anybody else any reflections on that? Natalia, what border did you just cross?
Latvian. Yes, from Estonia to Latvia. I wanted to say that, okay, my children don't chant japa, like basically not at all. Sometimes only when they offer food, then they don't don't chant those mantras for offering, but they chant Maha Mantra 3 rounds, and no, 3 mantras, 3 times one. And when they were small, they participated in kirtans and harinams, just like they, and now they just beside me. I'm happy that when they accept prasadam. But when we, I have seen as other teenagers, because I'm coordinating these youth programs in Europe, and we have a lot of experience when children of devotees, they don't, teenagers, they don't chant japa at home or in their daily life, and usually, but when they come to meet other young devotees, and after spending 1 week, they come home and they start. They want to chant japa. They want to worship deities, and even if some had some like something like smoking, trying to smoke or something like that. After association with other young devotees, teenagers who are just the same, they're kind of lost because they don't want in this being teenagers, they want to be independent also from parents, and they are kind of lost. They cannot find association. But when they come together, for like 60 young devotees from different countries, European countries, then they get this taste easily, very easily.
You know, to address something really unpalatable, recently there was a senior devotee who, there was some release about some bad things he was doing in ISKCON. And so I noticed amongst a lot of the youth, ISKCON youth, they were complaining and saying all the leaders are bad, and the Gurukul is all bad, and this and this and the other. And I didn't enter into discussion with them because it's too intense and too close to their heart. But I have a message I'd like to give them. I'd just like to repeat to everybody here today, that when we hear in a private way with these kids and they're saying something like this, I think we should tell them, yes, we're looking forward to you being the future. Because we made so many mistakes with the Gurukulas and things. We've done so many bad things, but you're our hope for the future because you've seen all these bad things. So let's work on something positive. And just by the way, I also read recently, I was curious, what is the difference between the rate of molestation of children in public schools and in the Catholic Church? Because we always hear so much about the Catholic Church, children being molested and things. And the statistics are like this. If you're a child in a public school, the rate of you getting molested is 100 times greater than if you're in the Catholic Church. Now, in our Gurukulas, we've had some really bad experiences, and I think maybe even as much as 70% or so of the Gurukulas that I've talked to were molested in one way or another in their earlier days. But things have changed a lot, and now we're having teachers who are more qualified, we're being more careful and things. But let's be sure and tell our children that it's not the fault of Vaishnavism. It's not the fault of the Bhagavad Gita. It's not the fault of the holy name. It's not the fault of Srila Prabhupada. It's not even the fault of ISKCON, but it's the fault of our immature society that we were hiring people, we were having people as teachers who weren't qualified. And now you're our future generation, so you've learned from this. So we have hopes that you're going to be different. Okay. Thank you very much, Natalia. Anybody else with any reflections? I think it's kind of a funny session today. I'm sorry. I'm just talking. I got up this thing. Maybe we should continue reading a little bit unless somebody else has something you want to share. Okay. Guru Maharaj is gone. Do you want to read a little bit, Leela Purushottam Prabhu? I have to share it. Let's see.
Yes.
From 3 stages of bhakti.
Yes, 3 stages of bhakti. There are 3 stages in the execution of bhakti: sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. During the period of sadhana bhakti, devotional service in practice, avidyā is destroyed. What is the activity of avidyā? It creates impediments and obstacles on the path of bhajan. Those impediments and obstacles are called anarthas, unwanted things. There are 4 types of anarthas: asat trishna, material desires; hridaya daurbalya, weakness of heart; aparadha, offenses; and tattva brahm, illusion about spiritual knowledge. Srila Rupa Goswami has written, Nyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanavritam anukulyena krishnani shivanam bhaktiruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. Asat Trishna means anyabhilasha, other desires. There should not be any other desires. We should have only one desire, bhavatad bhaktir ahituki tvai. This is Mahaprabhu's teaching. Nadhanam najanam nasundarim kavitamba jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmani ishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahituki tvai. O Lord, I have no desire to get material wealth, no desire to have many followers, dhana and jana, no desire to get a beautiful wife and enjoy, and no desire for liberation. Shikshastaka 4. Bhukti kama, mukti kama, and siddhi kama, the desires for material enjoyment, liberation, and yoga siddhi. These things are all anyabhilasha, desires separate from Krishna. Asat Trishna means all other desires for enjoyment in this life and the life after this life, iha janma and para janma. This is what is meant by Asat Trishna.
So I just want to comment also, Guru Maharaj is speaking about on the stage of sadhana that avidyā is destroyed. In one sense, we can say that, but in another sense, as Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is mentioning in Duri Kadambani, that goes all the way up to prema. And it's not that it's a stage. Sometimes devotees think that it's a stage, that anartha nibritti means that now I have no more anarthas left in my heart whatsoever. but it's a gradual thing which will go through different stages of ruchi and bhav and asakti, etc. Like that. So, let's see anything else I want to comment on here. Just in connection with Narottam Das Thakur's words, Prema-bhakti-candrika hoite, avidyā, vināśa, jāte. We need to understand this in a very deep way. Otherwise, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Tattva Vivek, he says that if we don't understand the nature of bhakti, we may become discouraged and think that all bhakti doesn't work. I've been trying it so long and I still have anarthas. When we were in Ukraine recently, Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj and Naranjan Maharaj gave initiations, and we were sitting in Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj was commenting. He said that some people, they think that I get initiated, but then I still have material desires afterwards, and then, oh, there's something wrong with the guru. And it was a good point. It's not that something's necessarily wrong with the guru. What's wrong is if we're not surrendering, if we're not taking shelter properly. And if we don't do that, then this ignorance is still there. And then we may fall prey to thinking, oh, there's something wrong with my guru, or even there's something wrong with the process of bhakti. And because we're not following properly, because we're not encouraging people to get a taste and to actually do something as an individual, as we're speaking about japa, quite often we're encouraging people to get on the institution bandwagon so that we have larger numbers of people that we saved, so to speak, and whatever. Then we have people who are not following properly, and then it looks bad for our society. And you have some leader who's fallen down or something, and everybody starts criticizing. And many young people, then they say all the gurus are bogus, all the sannyasis are bogus, and Krishna consciousness doesn't work, and this and that. So I want to read a few of the other comments here. Devasingha Prabhu, he says, this is the only yardstick to measure the success of preaching. How many are 16 rounders and eligible for initiation? It's a shame. That's I see that as a fault in our concept of preaching. That we're thinking of it in just those external ways, whereas preaching we just make friends with people. Quite often, when we're traveling, Krishna Kunda and I, we just try to be friendly and nice, and maybe we have a dhoti and sari on, and people, we understand that they walk away and think, wow, this Hare Krishnas are really nice people, and maybe they're not really interested in the philosophy. But if they can at least come to this point, they appreciate some devotee or something, we've done something good. A far better thing, I think, than trying to convince them to chant so many rounds or this or that, is to encourage them to take up something for themselves so they can get some kind of taste. As we often tell our devotees and new people, that if you see something that you like, please take it up. If you dislike the vegetarianism, if you like offering your food, then take that up. And maybe you don't like japa, or maybe you're not interested in Bhagavad Gita or something, it's just too dry for you. That's fine. It's not that you have to take up everything, but we want to encourage people to have some taste. And we do that with full confidence that if they get some taste and they like prasadam, then eventually they're going to also like chanting japa, and they're also going to like reading Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna Ujjvala, thank you very much for being here today. Brenda Sundari also commented something I appreciate. She said, my mood with my children has been whatever process or devotional service they feel personally and individually inspired to do, I support that. I don't like to be pushed. I go the opposite direction, and I figure neither do they. That's a fact. It's really, and it's not just with the children either, but it's with so many people. Sometimes people come and they're a little sincere and they're a little humble, and they just accept pretty much blindly whatever we tell them. Those kind of people I'm not very inspired by. I prefer someone who comes and is, I don't know, and they have doubts, and they express those doubts. Whereas usually I find that if somebody's just very passive and they just accept whatever you tell them, Usually it means they're repressing their doubts out of some social reason. They want to be accepted and liked by you, so they don't want to say those things. But I would rather someone be straightforward and say, well, how is it that so many children were molested in ISKCON? Or how is it that so many gurus have fallen down, or this or this? I'd rather they were straightforward with some doubt like that. That feels much, much more healthy to me. And then they can make up their own decisions. Gorni Taipabu has commented, we should use proper knowledge, Bhagavad Gita 13, 8 to 12, to understand and to preach Krishna consciousness. And to practice, of course, yeah, we should, with the real symptoms of knowledge. And Gorni Taipabu was asking, so yeah, please, if you want to make some comments, please do, Gorni Taipabu.
Thank you very much. So I think I have a nice relationship with my friend here, who is a teacher in Road Gurukula. He's not a teacher. He's like a, what is this name when someone is dealing with children in the free times, like break? Yeah, ashram teacher. Yeah. So we started to have a conversation about his life, how he found this service, what is his past experience, how he went through from his childhood. And it's a very nice experience. Maybe we will write a book about that. But he's a very good-hearted person. And he told me that his basic book, always the Bhagavad Gita, and he always want to understand children who is around him through the eyes of Bhagavad Gita. And he immediately he sees something, he tried to absorb himself into the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, these few verses, and he tried to find out what is missing in that boy, what I should encourage him, what I should give him to help him to get the proper knowledge and then act according to that knowledge, including when they try to chant japa, he's thinking, he's watching the boy, and he wants to understand the motivation of the boy. And the motivation is proper, then he goes, yes, go on. And the motivation is wrong, then immediately say no. So he's so nicely showing the example of the really opened eyes teacher. So and he has so deep the relationship with each of the children around him. So that's I think that's the key, to have personal relationship, to have open eyes, to always use that knowledge which is given by Krishna in the basic book, Bhagavad Gita. If you don't use that, we have many problems.
Very good. I just wanted to thank Dada Singha Prabhu for taking part today. It's in the same way, back to my mother and her job, I remember actually, I was very discouraging to her, because in the same way you're saying about your friend, if we see their motivation is not right, then I don't want to push them or encourage them to do something just in a shallow way, but I'd rather kind of hold them back. No, better you don't do that right now. And then they'll, what do you mean I don't do that? I want to do that. Let them develop their own desire for that rather than being pushed into something. It's really, really important. That's nice to hear. I was thinking when you were speaking about, I don't want to mention names, but there's a couple of boys that I know here in Hungary, one of whom was like the star Gurukuli at one point. And everybody just loved him, and he was going to be Shivaram Maharaj's personal servant and this and that. And he had a nervous breakdown because there was so much pressure on him to be so perfect and so pure in things. And at some point, he had to go to public school. There was no high school for the kids. And he wasn't able to be a devotee in that situation. And then he felt so terrible. And it's ironic, in his case, his mother later on decided not to be a devotee. And but now he's coming and he's coming to some of the kirtans and things again. And I asked him, and I was discouraging to him, just like I mentioned, I said, what are you doing here? Coming, you should be looking for girls and whatever, you're a young teenager. And he said, no, I like this. I want to come. And I know my mother doesn't like it anymore, but I don't care about that. I want to come on my own. And that makes me so very happy. That's really bhakti. And that's what we want to encourage. Such an important thing. Thank you, Gaurani Prabhu.
One thing more.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a verse, Bhagavad Gita 6:42, which says that, or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are really great in wisdom. So my friend told me that his vision is that all these boys who are coming from devotee families, they are Madhyamadikaris. They are not Kanishtas, they're Madhyamas. But they have some mistakes, they have some break, they have some problems, so they take birth again. So we have to see that we can encourage them to get back to that level, to get back to that conscious level. And sometimes, japa in a difficult time could be really, saving their life. So just they have to remind for the previous practice, and the japa could be helpful for them. But they are Madhyamadikaris, that we should see.
I think we should always be seeing that bhakti is a connection between the individual soul and Krishna, not between a person and the institution. And it's not that we own people or anything, but rather we want them to develop their relationship with Krishna. And we're so very, very happy if they do that. And they may be in their own individual way. Sometimes they go to some other group and take initiation by some other ISKCON guru other than in our zone, or maybe even outside of ISKCON, or maybe even they stop coming around the devotees. But still, like we at this dinner in Budapest a month ago for Diwali, we met one man who was a Muslim. And he was a nice guy. He was there at the dinner. He appreciates the devotees and everything. He's not a Hare Krishna, but he went to the bhakti and he attended courses, and he likes the devotees. So he walked away from Krishna consciousness with some favorable experience. And that makes me so happy. I feel like we were successful with him. Even though he's a practicing Muslim and doesn't want to practice Krishna consciousness, but he got something. He got some appreciation, some respect for the devotees. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see us give to people. Thank you, Gaurani Thakur. I appreciate it. Radhaji and Gopal Prabhu, do you want to share anything? You've been quiet. First, you should tell us where you're at. Are you at Govardhan now?
Yeah, I'm still in Govardhan. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can kind of even see you a little bit.
I'll turn to the light. I don't have much to add. I'm just appreciating the devotees' comments. It's an interesting subject when it comes to, introducing bhakti yoga to guests and introducing it in a wholesome way to children. I think it's an interesting topic. But Siddhar is here with me, and he said he has a question.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
We are all waiting for you here in Govardhan. We got the invitation that His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu is coming to Govardhan, and we all made our plans to come here. So we are still waiting for you here in Govardhan.
Thank you for saying that. that makes me feel very happy.
I remind you that there is this temple here called Lota Baba Temple. I'm not sure if you have, I should remember some of the Putri, like towards it. And there the story is that apparently there's this Sakha of Krishna who's waiting there for Krishna to return. And I feel we have joined the same ranks by waiting for you here in Avidyā. When is Madhavananda going to return to Govardhan? I'm sure devotees will surely miss you at the Ordinary retreat and the Govardhan retreat here.
Krishna's doing something to us.
So I had a comment and a question. So my comment was that I remember like last year, somebody asked His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, one mother went to him and asked him, that I'm having very difficulty in inspiring my kids to take Krishna consciousness. And he became very excited and some said a little angry. He said, do you know, have you heard that how much blood it takes to make a devotee? Have you heard from Bhakti Siddhanta? It takes gallons of blood. And that's what we should be ready to shed. So why do you think it would take any less to make your kids into devotees or inspire them into Krishna consciousness? So you should be ready to shed those many gallons to turn those wonderful kids and inspire them into Krishna consciousness. So that was his comment as like a parenting advice to a devotee who wanted to inspire his kids, who wanted to inspire her kids.
Well,
that was a comment.
Go ahead.
And then I had a question. The question was, I've been wondering recently, I recently read this book, Kirtan Revolution by Indra Prabhu. About Indra Prabhu, it's a biography of him. And then in the past, I've read biographies of, autobiography by Bhakti-Vinod Thakur, and, read essays about Jayananda Prabhu and wonderful devotees from our, those who are. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me, Prabhu? Yeah,
I can.
I've heard a number of essays about wonderful devotees who have accomplished, who are said to have achieved the perfection or close to a perfection in Krishna consciousness. Even His Holiness Gaura Gobind Swami Maharaj also. When I look at their life history, they don't seem to start at the stage of sadhana bhakti. It seems that they are starting from a very high stage, like something like asakti or nishta, not nishta, asakti or ruchi or even bhava. Like take the case of His Holiness Gaura Gobind Swami Maharaj or Indra Prabhu. So it is inspiring to read their work, but at the same time, I feel a little bit discouraged or cheated in a sense. It seems to be nobody's starting at a place where I'm starting. I'm like way below the anartha level stage where I'm starting, and I don't find any examples at all who are crossing those anarthas. It seems like people are talking about those anarthas in Madhurya Kanambani, but even Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he's also in Nitya Siddha. So then I've been wondering recently, thinking about it, that are there no like diaries or biographies or writings of people who have made through these stages as sadhana, siddha bhakti or kripa siddha bhakti, whatever ways? What are your thoughts on this?
First of all, there's two big examples that we know of who are even worse than you. And their names were Jagai and Madai. and they became Jagannath Das and Madhavananda. And very great devotees. And there's also in Prema-bhakti-candrika, I'm trying to remember the name of the devotee. I sometimes tell the story, it's not coming to my mind right off, about one personality who was extremely demoniac. And even at one point became possessed by a ghost. But he became a great devotee. So there are some examples. Maybe a better question might be, why are there so few examples given? And maybe because we want to focus more on the good things of persons, and we want to focus more on the exalted devotees. And also that there may be many devotees even in Chaitanya Charitamrita who are described, and we don't know what kind of background all of them are from. Some that we know from Gaura Ganadhesh Deepika that most all of them are associates of Krishna in the spiritual world, but some of them perhaps were not in that situation. So, yeah, I just like associating with devotees, and I think that when I see devotees in general, even there's so many devotees who were taking drugs and doing so many terrible things before they joined, and now I see them as very exalted persons, maybe not as exalted as Ayendra Prabhu or as my Guru Maharaj. But still, Ayendra Prabhu, I suspect that he was probably a hippie something before he joined. I don't think he was exactly on the platform of Asakti. My Guru Maharaj was in a very different kind of category. I mean, he followed the regulated principles his whole life, and from a childhood was chanting the holy names and reading Gita and things. But persons like Jayananda and like Ayendra Prabhu, it's a fact that their progress comes very, very quickly. Another example is Bhakti-Vinod Thakur. You may know in his autobiography, he speaks about how he was eating fish and non-vegetarian things before he came to Krishna consciousness. But according to our acharyas, we consider Bhaktivinoda Thakur to be a Nitya Siddha. And we can maybe look at Haridas Thakur. There's a good chance, we don't hear about his life, but there's a good chance that Haridas Thakur took non-vegetarian things because he was born and raised in a Muslim family, in a Muslim community. So there's a good chance of that. But he's a very, very exalted person. So it's a little, I don't know, being a little rambling. I don't know if that's helpful for your question or not. Is that a little helpful, Siddha Hari Prabhu?
Definitely, it was helpful to hear all these examples in this perspective. Now, what is your understanding when we hear the example of, say, Ayendra Prabhu or Jananda Prabhu, who seem to have covered, but as soon as they get introduced to Krishna consciousness, they make rapid advancement? It's not that they are hanging at the low stages of bhakti for longest time. Like overnight, they're like through them. It's not they not spend so much time at the lower stages. Like in a week, they go from one thing to another thing to see, like, some.
And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the same way too. I mean, just it seemed like he's not a devotee, and all of a sudden, as soon as he comes in contact with Krishna consciousness, bang, all of a sudden he's a great Mahatma. So I think that the inference that you're suggesting, if I can see it that way, is that they were doing something in a previous life, or perhaps even they're sent from the spiritual world in the case of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And externally, they're eating some non-vegetarian things like Garuda, but we don't judge them in that way. Hey, thank you, Brinda Sundari. Nice to have your association here today. Yeah, another point is too that sometimes maybe someone just surrenders. Of course, that surrender may also be the fruit of a previous lifetime, but they just may have some very intense inspiration to surrender because maybe they suffered very badly, or they want to have some knowledge. As Krishna speaks in the Gita, Chaturvidha bhajanti mam, there's 4 types of persons who come to him. And some of them are coming because they suffered, some are coming because they want knowledge, some are coming for different reasons. But someone may have some very intense attitude like that, which will also make some difference too. These are nice things to discuss. I don't know if there's a hard and fast, I don't think you can find a hard and fast rule for all this, because unless we knew who Jayananda Prabhu was or is before he came to Srila Prabhupada, or Ayendra Prabhu, and knew their history and things, you can't really conclusively speak about those things. We can read books like the Gita Mahatmya and the Padma Purana about personalities who, or even animals who somehow were very attracted to the Gita or devotional activities, and it was because of some previous sukriti, bhakti mukhi sukriti from a previous life, and get some idea. But the whole subject matter is such an unlimitedly complicated thing. To try to draw a particular conclusion from it is very, very difficult. And that's all I can think. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. I appreciate it. I'll think.
And it's really nice. I hope we see you. And I have to tell you, I've really been thinking about, I'm really, really attached to 2 things in this world for my tongue and my body. One is fresh devotee cow milk, and the other is organic greens. When you made that suggestion, that's made me think. But I don't know. It looks like we're going to be pretty well situated here in Hungary for some time, maybe even longer than we were thinking. Thank you, Prabhu. I hope to see you.
Thank you for considering that.
Lila Purushottam Prabhu, you wanted to add something else?
I'd like to ask, actually, because there is the Gauragovinda Maharaj, he was discussing there in what I've read, this Anyabhilashita part. He was looking at it from few points of view, and in this regard, I always have this how to say a strong inclination to one interpretation, but it's hard to get it founded, get it like grounded to Now, because later I can't really remember exactly where, but later in not much farther in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the commentary, I believe it's Vishwanath Chakravarti, if it's not Jiva Goswami, but one of them, discusses that it must be like this, because otherwise this discussion wouldn't fit into the sadhana bhakti discussion. It would have to be the discussion in a later chapter, in the bhava bhakti. And in this sense, I always have it connected with this part of the definition of Kevala Bhakti, Anya Bilashita. Yeah. And now, usually we are used to have the interpretation that you should be desireless. You're not allowed to have material desires. And then there is, some license is there in the commentary explain why Rupa Goswami didn't use Anyabhilasha but used Anyabhilashita. Jiva Goswami explains it there. But in my sense, anyway, I will propose the understanding and let you comment on it. Or what if we would look at it that we are not supposed to expect from our bhakti, from our devotional service, to achieve any material desires, meaning like I do bhakti to gain, and then whatever would be that specific material desire. Because I have this contradiction in my mind, that is it really that you can be in the stage of sadhana bhakti like without any material desires? Your conditioned soul coming to devotional service and want to practice it, want to execute bhakti. And how do you expect that you are like desireless? Like in one sense, we count on that we can have a pure devotee grihastas, but in one sense, why do you need the association of the opposite sex in whatever way, even in the varnashram proper cultural way? But it's kind of a material desire. And yet you're expected to perform pure devotional service. So in that sense, I have this dilemma. Isn't it the same? Wouldn't it be like? Anyway, yeah, you know what's the point?
Well, first of all, even someone like the four Kumaras, when they began practicing bhakti, they were doing sadhana bhakti, but they had no material desires. So it's not that just because someone doesn't have material desires that they don't practice sadhana bhakti. And we have to act according to our particular situation. And what is purity? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary 930 in the Gita that doing Anandita Bhajan simply means that they're doing bhajan with faith in Krishna, and they're not taking shelter to worship or karma, gyan, or yoga. Like that's a pure devotee, and Prabhupada used that term many, many times. So when we say pure devotion or without material desires, it can be multi-leveled what that can mean. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone has no desires or we're desireless. It doesn't even necessarily mean they don't have some material desires, but within the activity of their bhajan should be pure in the sense that I'm not taking shelter of karma, jnana, yoga, and that I'm doing this thing, but I understand that I have material desires, and these material desires are not what I want. But still, the Bhagavatam tells us that the verse is not coming to my mind, very famous verse too. Akama sarva kama va moksha kamo dharati, that whatever you want, even if you have material desires, or if you want liberation, you should still worship Krishna. So, is that helpful?
Yeah, it's coming closer. Like this verse actually, Rupa Goswami uses in that discussion even to support the what is not pure devotional service, or what may not be pure devotional service. This akama sarva kamava. But my point is that for me there is a strong difference between the attitude that I'm doing devotional service to satisfy my material desire, in a sense. In contrast to, I know that I have material desires, but I want to perform like pure devotional service in the sense that all my engagement in bhakti is exclusively meant to please the Lord, to achieve sadhya, to achieve prema bhakti. And alongside, I'm aware that I have material desires, but I don't do devotional service to satisfy those material desires. That's the thing that I have a dilemma about.
Yeah, and therefore our acharyas, they've given many descriptions that Satopi, I'm a criminal, I'm a duplicitous person. Raghunath Das Goswami prays, I have so many material desires, I'm like this, I'm like that. They're lamenting that way, but they're not praying, please give me a wife, give me this thing, give me that thing. And therefore they're a pure devotee.
Okay, so but then then it sounds like drastically contradict if you would choose to present it in a way that in order to execute pure devotional service, you're supposed to be having no material desires. You understand that thin line?
My understanding is a subtle point. And when, therefore, we're citing 930 of the Gita, and what is it, that ananyata bhajan, that one-pointed bhajan, that's pure bhajan. It doesn't mean that the person who's doing it doesn't have other material desires, but they're not expressing, they're not praying for fulfillment of those desires to the Lord. Rather, they're focused on doing their nam-bhajan.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's a good point. And I'm trying to think of the verse.
Because later in the discussion, there is like specifically this expression by I believe it's Vishwanath Chakravarti in one of the purports later to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is that this discussion must be, I don't remember exactly the place where it is. That's so sad. But he makes the point that if that would be the case, this discussion couldn't be part of this chapter, and this means this second chapter of the sadhana bhakti. It would have to be part of the next chapter, Bhava Bhakti. So it sounds to me exactly like that. It would be perfectly fitting even to this situation.
In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there's a verse which is also there in CC, Kamadinam katina katida palita dhanidesha. Are you familiar with that verse?
Yeah, well, I don't have.
Nice. Kamadinam katina katida palita dhanidesha. So that I've had, it's a prayer to the Lord that I have so many lusty desires. And of these lusty desires that I have, they're unlimited, katida, And Palita Dunideshas, I've been following them. And Palita means the follow, but Palita also means I've been practically nourishing, I've been maintaining those desires. But still they haven't given me any hope. And I've been serving, I haven't even desired to give them up. But now my intelligence, he says, is some preptum labda buddhi. I have this labda buddhi. I'm beginning to get a bit of a brain. And now I'm understanding that I don't want to follow these unwanted desires, and I'm coming and surrendering to you. So my understanding is there's two different things. One is the heart of a devotee, whether they have material desires or not. And Rupa Goswami is giving this verse to indicate that some persons still have material desires, but they're approaching the Lord and they're crying in this way. But in their approach to the Lord and their practice of bhakti, their practice is pure. They're doing anandata bhajan because they're not praying. They have enough intelligence, as this verse also indicates, that I've had all these lusty desires and they're not giving me any happiness. So that person is not praying like akama sarva kama rava. He's not praying that please give me fulfillment of these material desires. He's not asking for that, but he still has desires in the heart. It's a really important discussion, actually, because many times in our society, we think that pure devotee just means someone whose heart is completely spick and span clean, and there's no material desires whatsoever.
We lost you for a few essential words, that we think that pure devotee, and then we lost you for a few words.
Yeah, the pure devotee means that I have absolutely no material desires in the heart. But if you look at Srila Prabhupada's comments, he said, all my disciples are pure devotees.
Yeah.
Well, why is he saying that? Is he just trying to flatter everybody? At one point I used to think that, but then you start looking a little closer, what Prabhupada meant, they're not taking shelter of karma, jnana, yoga, they just want Krishna, and maybe they have lusty desires or to eat this or that. But their focus is on Krishna. They're pure and they're focused to pray to Krishna. So that's pure. But they may also have some other desires. And therefore, Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, he says that there's two types of bhakti. There's, what does he call it? Sakaitava and akaitava bhakti. Bhakti which is cheating and bhakti which is pure. And the difference is that the cheating bhakti is that bhakti where I'm trying to act like I'm a pure devotee, but I'm not. And the akaitava bhakti means that it's not duplicitous, that I'm coming and I'm offering a prayer, like this verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Kamadinam Katina Katida Palita Dhanidesha said, I have
Do you know the number, please?
Sorry?
Do you know the number of that verse?
Yeah, let me. It's I got it here. It's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3:225, and it's also, I'll paste it in the thing for everybody. And it's Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 22:16. I'll also put. So there's a point where we have material desires, but we pray to the Lord to please take those desires away, and that's considered to be honesty. And in fact, my Guru Maharaj used to take it a step further and say that your only qualification is your disqualification. When we own it, when we acknowledge that I have those desires and things. And maybe in my non-bhajan, maybe we're pure in the sense that I'm not praying for anything else. I'm not praying. I have material desires for lust or this or that, but I'm not praying for that. But I know in my heart, I'm disturbed by so many different things which are coming up. And therefore, I use that to cry, that disqualification is my only qualification. Does that help some people?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it comes to it brings me to also another wonderful place in this sense is 11th canto, this 20, 27, 28. This is double verses.
Yes, I was going to go to that, I think. Yeah. Well, there's some verses in the 11th canto, I'm not sure if I'm thinking about the same ones, where Krishna advises that you offer your illicit desire. Jiva Goswami, now Prabhupada didn't say much about that. In some kind of covered ways here and there, and for obvious reasons. It would encourage devotees in the wrong way. But that's just being honest. And far better to be like that than to be someone who's just pretending that I'm a pure devotee, but they're doing all kinds of nonsense things. Better you offer your nonsense things.
Yeah, because that I see as much higher risk for my true development in bhakti. If I fall prey to duplicity, then what hope is there to work on those things that are needed to be worked on? If I'm ignoring them, neglecting them, or trying to avoid them, or and pretend.
I'm a pure devotee. I'm not like that. But then secretly he's watching some cricket match. Oh my God. What is it? It shows about bicycling in the mountains or something, or I don't know.
Okay, since you know me very well. Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu. I just wanted to be more clear on this, because I always care this doubt how to interpret this anyabhilasha.
Well, you know, part of it I think too comes because of a social thing in our society, and we have such a stigma that if anybody, you know, oh my God, he watched a television show or a movie or this or that, or he likes to you know, he watches YouTube things about bicycling in the mountains, you know, something. And that's not pure bhakti, of course, but at the same time, that's a lot of people are coming from that kind of background. And better, why can't devotees just own it and use it to cry? And I'd like to get rid of this. I'd like to give this attachment up, but it's not easy. It's hard in our society. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. And Jai Gaur, you wanted to share something?
I should keep this.
Okay, I have some friends coming. Just a couple of minutes. We're going to be quick. Go ahead.
Okay, I mean, I can keep it till late. I can ask the question later for the sake of time.
Go ahead. You can ask now.
I was there was a whole lot of chanting japa, and
but you're going in about off. It's really hard to hear you. You hear you for a second, then you go out and you're on.
Is it that way?
A little better.
Perhaps then I should wait. I can ask later. My connection's not so good.
Okay, we'll go ahead and stop. I just have one last question for Tirtha Prabhu, and we'll go ahead and get off. Tirtha, how's your moving going?
Hare Krishna.
How's the moving going?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of madness. But I would love to still listen, so I now got a little time, so I put headphones and I can follow.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that. We just wanted to see your smiling face and know what's going on with you, your part of things, that's all.
It is the last week, the next week it should be already okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. And thank you, everybody. So I look like we're going to be, I'm really looking forward to like actually becoming regulated. This Bhishma Panchika was so nice for me. I didn't have to travel. I wasn't giving classes or anything. And we got a little bit regulated. I'm hoping it's going to become even more in the next few months so we can do some writing and whatever. So we can be more regular in our session. So anyway, thank you all very much. And we'll see you guys next week, I guess. And Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vancha Kalpa Darubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Deva Cha Patitanam Pavani Vaishya.